Campfire Classics is a classic literature podcast. However, your hosts will occasionally use not-so-classy language and immature humor to describe very mature situations. As such, listener discretion is advised. Hi, I'm Ken Sandberg.
And I'm Heather Michelle Lawler.
Welcome to Campfire Classics, where we try to read those books that look really good on your shelf.
The world's falling apart, but you're here to listen to a story, so woo woo.
That was you know what that reminded me of? That was a Bluegrass tune.
Oh,
That was a Bluegrass tune. By which I mean, if you listen to Bluegrass music, generally speaking, it has the most upbeat and happy melodies and these chipper little like mandolin parts that just make you want to groove. And then you listen to the lyrics and you go home and kill yourself.
Jesus Christ. Well, that's funny because anyone who knows me knows that I was seeing a bluegrass musician for a couple of years on and off. And I would agree with that.
Yeah. It is.
I love bluegrass. I love bluegrass. But it'll fuck you up.
Bluegrass music is very, very thinly veiled depression. That's all it is.
Well, it's country music, but instead of about your truck and your dog, it's like poetic. Like bluegrass music is like better written country music.
More interesting themes than modern day country western anyway.
Yeah, I would say contemporary bluegrass, yeah. And also it tends to be a little more complex musically. Just because the style itself of bluegrass tends to be a little more complex.
Sometimes that's true. Sometimes I think we're just mistaking it for complex because banjos play so many fucking notes at once.
And mandolins. Yeah,
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It's just really fast.
I always have felt like bluegrass is a like combo of folk country and jazz. And I think that's because I love Django Reinhardt.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Who is
which is like gypsy jazz.
Gypsy jazz, but a lot of bluegrass musicians like aspire to be like. So I feel like bluegrass is really like folky country meets jazz.
When you're talking musical genres, there's so much cross-pollination. It's really hard to sort of know where the difference is. I've been watching a bunch of these videos on YouTube through the Drumeo YouTube channel. And what they do is they bring in well-known drummers from bands or session drummers or whatever, and they have them listen to a song that they have never heard before, that they have removed the drum track from, and then the drummer comes in and plays.
You've shown me some of these.
Yeah, I just watched one of them today that was the drummer from the band Lamb of God, which is a like metal band, heavy metal, like intense.
Is it an actual heavy metal band, or is it like a Jesus heavy metal band? Oh, that's hilarious.
No, it's not. But he's listening to the song Thunder by Imagine Dragons.
Okay.
And one of the things they talk about is how much just changing the drum beat changes that song from essentially a little hip hop pop electronic groove to like, oh, now it's a fucking rock song.
Yeah.
There's a lot of crossover in genres.
Yeah, I agree. But anyway, good morning, everybody. Literally, it is morning because Ken's in tech and I'm in rehearsals, and this was the time we had.
Welcome to Campfire Classics, a musical appreciation over a cup of coffee genre podcast.
We're like NPR.
Hello and welcome to Campfire Classics. This week we'll be discussing cross-pollination of hard rock death metal and bluegrass.
Creepy corners. Yes.
Yes. So let's go ahead and jump right into that, shall we?
Yes. Because I know you got one for me, Ken.
Oh, I absolutely do. Come with me around the bend to a place we can't pretend is anything less than filled with horror. Welcome, friends, to Creep Corner. This week's Creep Corner is really just sort of a peek around the corner. We're just sort of looking around creepy corner, a creepy peek, if you will.
A creepy peek. I like it. Okay.
A little random creepy fact, really, that I learned, and I figured it might be good for a brief conversation.
Okay.
So, aside from the bedroom, which is unfairly skewed because we spend a third of our lives sleeping, let alone the other stuff we do in there. Mm-hmm. Wink, wink. The most common place for a person to die or have non-lethal cardiac event, want to guess?
Bathroom?
Yeah, on the toilet.
Absolutely. Yeah.
The toilet is the most common place for a person to die. And there is sort of a dual cause and effect situation going on here, right? Because the one way is that when people aren't feeling well, the first thing they tend to do is, oh, maybe I need to poop. So
or
people
vomit or
or whatever. So when people are starting to feel badly, they go to the toilet to release the demons. And if that not feeling well happens to be because you're dying,
Jesus Christ.
There you go. Also, it is well known, well documented that cardiac issues like heart attacks and whatever tend to cause gastrointestinal distress, which very much feels like you need to release some stuff.
Babe, you should not be telling me this. I am a hypochondriac and I have stomach issues.
we learned all about that from Jerry Larry's fart attack on Parks and Rec.
That's true.
Right.
Yeah.
The flip side is that if a person tends not to be in the best of health anyway, and they are having trouble releasing their demons, you can actually strain a thing and cause heart problems by pushing too hard.
Oh, absolutely.
And that can kill you.
People also have like aneurysms and stuff. Like if you push, like your like brain will explode. Yeah.
Yep. This is why bathroom health is not to be ignored.
Jesus Christ. Also, Elvis died on the toilet, y'all.
Yeah.
Like that is a documented fact.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, I fucked up for the day. Good.
Yay. So anyway, be careful while you're in there, y'all.
Yes. Take your time. And when in doubt, call 911, I guess. Hey, I guess that's a good, is that an advertisement to, yes, indeed, do take your phone into the bathroom?
Yeah, I like that.
Because a lot of people are like, your phone is the only thing that you carry around that is dirtier than a toilet because your hand, I mean, it makes sense.
Don't let people shame you about using your phone on the toilet.
Yeah,
you're just protecting yourself.
You might have a health event.
Yeah.
And you'll need access.
Plus, you're way less likely to get in a hurry and push too hard if you've got if you're
like zooming through like
Fruit Ninja or something to keep you occupied. I don't know what game people are playing
or
these
scrolling
days.
Instagram or something. Yeah, if you're reading an article, yes, you're less likely to stress. That we need to bring back the idea of magazines in the bathroom too. You know, like get a full article in there to do your business.
Yeah, I do like the sort of non-existent anymore, but you used to see them all over the place. The bathroom readers.
Oh yeah.
They're little books that have short stories and anecdotes and whatnot in them.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Also, squatty potties because we're not meant to sit on it'll help you poop better.
Amen.
There you go, y'all.
Less of an issue for those of us who are taller than average.
Less of an issue, yes, but
because you're already squatting pretty deep just to reach the toilet.
Yeah. I guess I don't know. I'm a wee. So as I like to say, I'm a wee.
Anyway, this has been a peek around Creep Corner. I hope you enjoyed it. So here at Campfire Classics, we are not, in fact, a poop podcast. Well, that's only sort of true.
We are not a scatological humor podcast.
That's only partially true. We frequently
my
are.
friend Brandon would never, ever listen to this if we were only talking about poop the whole time.
But it does come up frequently. But what we actually do is read short stories that we have found from the public domain. We cold read them for you right here, sight unseen. We record it and you listen to it and you love us for it, I assume. Otherwise, you wouldn't be here. And of course, along the way, we make, well, scatological jokes, penis jokes, make fun of 150-year-old racists, you know, the usual stuff.
The good stuff. Yeah. I mean, you can make fun of contemporary racists too. Please do. But
please do. Go ahead and go out there and punch Nazis to your heart's content.
Please fucking God do. If you're in Milwaukee right now, you know what I'm talking about.
We just, as a rule on this podcast, are not dealing with contemporary racists because most contemporary racists
are not in public domain.
Public domain.
Yeah.
But before we jump into the story that I have selected for Heather to read this week, I'm going to share a few fun facts to get us in the mood. So this week, you will be reading a story that has the distinction of being the first piece of fiction to appear in the first ever volume of the British literary magazine, The Strand.
Ooh.
The
OG.
Yeah. So this first ever volume, it was published in January of 1891.
Okay.
And that issue of The Strand had this introduction. The editor of The Strand magazine respectfully places his first number in the hands of the public. The Strand magazine will be issued regularly in the early part of each month. It will contain stories and articles by the best British writers and special translations from the first foreign authors. These will be illustrated by eminent artists. Special new features, which have not hitherto found place in magazine literature, will be introduced from time to time. It may be said that with the immense number of existing monthlies, there is no necessity for another. It is believed, however, that the Strand magazine will soon occupy a position which will justify its existence. The past efforts of the editor in supplying cheap, healthful literature have met with such generous favor from the public that he ventures to hope that this new enterprise will prove a popular one. He is conscious of many defects in the first issue, but will strive after improvement in the future.
Beware. We kind of sucked at the first one, but it's going to get better, y'all. I promise.
Yeah. And then that intro wraps with, will those who like this number be so good as to assist by making its merits, if they are kind enough to think that it has any, known to their friends? This is a thing we often propose here at Campfire Classics.
I was like, yeah, tell your friends, y'all.
If you like what we're doing, tell your friends. So that the issue then goes on to have a brief history of the street and neighborhood in London from which the magazine takes its name, Strand. Yeah. Before we get to the story that you'll be reading in a minute. Over the years, The Strand published works by some of our favorite authors, Christie, Doyle, Wells, Nesbitt, Wallace, Jacobs. You get the idea. And, of course, this week's author, Grant Allen. Information on him is relatively limited, but what there is actually kind of interesting. He was born in Canada, but started moving around at age 13, first to the U.S., then to France, then to the U.K., where he went to Oxford, then back to France, then back to England, where he taught at Brighton, then to Jamaica, where he taught at Queen's College.
Ah, yes, because I always forget Jamaica was a British colony.
Yeah, for a long time. Despite the fact that his father was an Irish preacher, Grant became an atheist.
You know, that's not surprising at all.
That seems to happen. Pastors' kids, PKs tend to either go like hard religious or hard anti, especially if you're looking at like 150 years ago.
Yep, the son of the preacher man just kind of takes a turn.
Yeah. As a writer, Grant made some really unexpected choices. His most popular and scandalous book was called The Woman Who Did.
Oh.
The central character is an independent woman who has a child out of wedlock, and she's not painted as an evil hussy. So, edgy stuff.
So, truth.
Yeah.
I
So
like it.
He seems like he was an interesting, cool dude. He also wrote under at least 2 female presenting pseudonyms.
Okay.
Don't
That's
know exactly
rare.
why. It just seems like he liked to do things because he could.
I wonder if he wanted to write stuff that was a little more sentimental and thought it would be taken more seriously coming from, because I know, if you read, Little Women,
Right.
Jo March, which is based on Mary Louise Alcott,
Yeah.
she wrote under a male pseudonym a lot, which a lot of female writers did, because no one would take them seriously. They wanted them to write fairy tales and
Right. Yeah.
cutesy love stories. So I wonder if our writer today was like, I would like to take a swing at those too, but they're more likely to get published if they are a female presenting author.
Yeah.
I wonder if it swings both ways. I don't know.
He also does, looking at the titles, it seems that the stories and books that he was publishing under the women's pseudonyms did tend to center on women as the characters, as the central characters.
That makes sense to me. He was just trying to find the right audience, and it was more likely to get someone to read it if they thought it was a woman.
Yeah.
Wow, that's really rare in that time to swing the other way, because most of the women of the time, most of the artists of the time were absolutely using male names to get published.
Yeah. He became, in the later part of his life, he became a huge proponent of the theory of evolution.
Oh, well, yeah, we like him.
Yep.
He can stay.
In 1899, at 51 years old, he died of liver cancer, but not before he published many stories in The Strand, including the one that you are about to read, which was the first story The Strand ever published. It is called A Deadly Dilemma.
Ooh, I like the alliteration. Let's do this.
Let's start this fire.
A Deadly Dilemma by Grant Allen. When Netta Main came to think it... That's a good start, Lawler. Lord,
we made it halfway through the first sentence. We didn't even.
It's
we
too
made it halfway
early.
to the first comma.
I was wondering how this was going to go because it's so early. It was either going to be brilliant. I'm going to be like, fuck, I need to wake up earlier more often. Or I was going to go, yeah, this makes sense.
Yep.
All right. When Netta Main came to think it over afterward in her own room by herself, she couldn't imagine what had made her silly enough to quarrel that evening with Untred Carnegie. Oh.
Ooh.
Also, Untred?
Ugtred?
Untred is what I'm calling him.
Great.
That is a unfortunate first name.
It looks very German.
Yeah, it's true. But Carnegie is not. Untred Carnegie. Carnegie's like the most British, upbringing, that came to America and, fucking took over the planet.
Yeah, what is...
Untred.
Ugtred, the name?
That's just that is a choice. That choice has been made.
Apparently it is, everything I'm looking at, there are several barons and lords in UK's history.
With the name Untred?
With the name, yeah.
In the UK. Wow, that's so wild. Okay.
And the roots are ut, which means dawn, and red, which means counsel or advice.
It almost seems Scandinavian.
And all of those languages
Germanic
up there.
is, I know. They're all the same.
But so I guess it means early advice.
Early advice Carnegie. All right. Well, yes. So Untred is a weird name, but also that was a great opening line because it was we all do that after an argument. We come home and sit in our room and go,
shouldn't have fucking said
Shouldn't
that.
have said that. I shouldn't have done that.
Yeah.
Don't fight with Untred. I mean, he's got a stupid name, but it's not a reason. All right. She could only say, in a penitent mood, it was always the way like that with lovers. Uh-oh. Till once they've quarreled a good round quarrel and afterwards solemnly kissed and made it all up again, things never stand on a really firm and settled basis between them. Make up sex.
Yep. Relationship forged in fire.
Yep. It's a move in the game. You must thrust in tice before you thrust in court.
Tierts. Yeah, so it's tierts and court. It's fencing
Three times.
terms. No, it's the parries 3 and 4.
Oh my gosh.
You must thrust in 3 before you thrust in 4. Tierce and court.
Tierce and court?
Yeah.
Okay. I've never heard that. Like, I know 3 and 4.
Yeah.
Tierce and court. Wow. Okay, so we also have a fencer here or a, combatant. Okay.
Yeah.
I like that it says you must thrust. I know it's about swordplay, but come on. And it's also about makeup sex. It's also about makeup sex.
Like swordplay isn't just a massive euphemism.
Oh, yeah. I mean, why do you think the Romans gathered around and just watched people, like, thrust things? It's like pornography with blood. Ew. Let's see. You must thrust in
Tierce.
trice. Tierce.
Tierce.
Turts.
Tierce.
Tierce. You must thrust in tierce before you thrust in quart. The Roman playwright spoke the truth after all. A lover's quarrel begins a fresh chapter in the history of their lovemaking.
Yeah.
Damn!
Welcome to NPR After Hours.
I was going to say, this is a naughty little story. Okay.
We're thrusting in tears.
I like when we don't have to make the euphemisms. That's what the story is about. It was a summer evening, calm and clear and balmy, and Netta and Untred had strolled out together, not without a suspicion at times of hand locked in hand, on the high chalk down that rises steep behind Holmberry. I didn't realize this is a romance novel.
This is a steamy one, apparently.
How or why they fell out, she hardly knew, but they had been engaged already some months without a single disagreement, which of course gave Netta a natural right to quarrel with Upred by this time. You know what?
Things have been going too good.
That is not untrue. Like, we don't fight that often. Like, I remember, like, early on in our relationship, I was like, we need to have a disagreement. Like, we disagree a lot. Like, disagreements, we have discussions a lot. But, like, I was like, something's wrong. This seems very healthy.
There's nothing wrong with not fighting, y'all.
It's just, so I feel this girl. I feel it. All right. And as they returned down the hanging path through the combe where the wild orchards grow, she used that right at last, out of pure, unadulterated feminine perversity. The ways of women are wonderful. No mere man can fathom them. Okay, this is my favorite writer that we've ever read. It's fucking true.
Women are fucking weird. I don't get them.
He's saying women are weird and so brilliant that no man can understand them.
Yeah. I assume he's using wonderful in this context in the truest form of the word, in that just like full of wonder.
Full of
like,
wonder.
I don't get it.
Oh, yeah. Like, men are from Mars, women are from Venus situation. Yep. But the way it says no mere man, I just love the phrasing of that. I want it on a t-shirt. The ways of women are wonderful. No mere man can fathom them. Like, that is just a good fucking quote. Something that Untred said gave her the chance to make a half-petulant answer. Petulant? Did I say that right? Yeah.
You added an N, which
I thought
you
so.
do sometimes.
Yeah. Sometimes you need an N. I don't know. Something that it makes it easier to say, I guess. Something that Untred said gave her the chance to make a half-petulant answer. Untred very naturally defended himself from the imputation of rudeness, and Netta retorted. At the end of 10 minutes, the trifle had grown apace into a petty... At the end... Sorry. At the end... We're doing good. We're 2 paragraphs in. At the end of 10 minutes, the trifle had grown apace into as pretty a lover's quarrel as any lady novelist could wish to describe in 5 chapters. Wow. Also, this portrait, there's as the Strand promised us, we get a
Lovely
beautiful illustration. Is she going to hit him with that? Is that an
With
umbrella?
Her umbrella?
Her
parasol.
It's
a parasol.
It's a parasol. She's going to nudge him. Also, Untred has a glorious mustache. It's been a while since we spoke of glorious mustaches on this show.
That is a pretty good one.
That's a glorious mustache.
That's a pretty good one.
Mustache. Yeah. Netta had burst into perfectly orthodox tears, refused to be comforted in the most approved fashion, declined to accept Untred's escort home, and bidden farewell to him excitedly forever and ever.
This feels very Oscar Wilde.
This is, yes. It does. It's like a commentary on upper class relationships.
Yeah,
and
it's the conversation between Cecily and the other one.
Oh, and G starts with a G.
Gwendolyn,
thank you.
It's well, of course, I burst into tears, as you must, and I refused to be comforted because, well, that would never do.
No, and then I said farewell forever. Yes. It was all about nothing, to be sure, and if 2 older or wiser heads had only stood by unseen to view the little comedy, they would sagely have remarked to one another, with a shake, that before 24 hours were out the pair would be rushing into one another's arms with mutual apologies and mutual forgiveness.
Yeah.
Yep. But Netta Main and Untred Carnegie were still at the age when one takes love seriously. One does before 30.
Yeah.
Well, and
Not wrong.
Not wrong. It's I literally... Who was I talking about this recently? I was like, everything in your teens and your 20s is fucking tragic.
Yep.
Not that it isn't tragic, because what you experience is real, and that is your perception of the situation. But it is amazing to look back at how unhinged all of us, but I can only speak for myself and a few of my friends that we were close with, how unhinged we would get over the stupidest shit with boys.
Oh, yeah.
And girls, and it was just, everything was just, oh, my life is over. I need to go home and listen to On My Own 30 times.
Well, and because when you don't have anything else to compare it to, it is the most extreme thing that you've ever felt, which is why when you're, 18, 20, 24, whatever, everyone you meet is the love of your life or the most horrible person in the world.
Absolutely.
Because you don't have enough experience to sort of mitigate, to find any sort of middle ground.
Because they are the love of your life up until that point. Also, I just remembered, this is a shout out to one of our listeners. Lindsay and I had I don't know if she'll remember this. This was in high school, and it was over a silly boy. We were both kind of into these boys, and they were not liking us. And we sat there, and she held my hand while we listened to On My Own, on repeat. I remember that, Lindsay. Do you? Because that is a core memory of my, what did they call it? How did she phrase this? when I took love seriously.
Yeah.
Anyway, as one does before 30. And so they turned away along different paths at the bottom of the combe in the firm belief that love's young dream was shattered and that henceforth they two were nothing more than the merest acquaintances to one another. "Goodbye, Mr. Carnegie," Netta faltered out, as in obedience to her wishes. Though much against his own will, Untred turned slowly and remorsefully down the footpath to the right in the direction of the railway. "Goodbye, Netta," Untred answered, half choking. Even at that moment of parting, forever or a day, he couldn't find it in his heart to call her Miss Main, who had so long been Netta to him.
Fucking drama queens.
Goodbye forever. I'm so glad I got to do both of their voices. He waved his hand and turned along the footpath, looking back many times to see Netta still sitting inconsolable where he had left her, on the stile that led from the combe into the 4-acre meadow. Both paths, to right and left, led back to Holmberry over the open field, but they diverged rapidly and crossed the railway track by separate gates and 500 yards from each other. I'm very concerned that they keep bringing up these railroad tracks.
Yeah. Well, I'm imagining that this is going to be the kind, like, so there's the train dilemma where, like, which track would you switch it to?
Yeah.
And now we're dealing with railway track. Yeah. This seems ill-fated.
I don't like it. I don't like when they keep bringing up railroad tracks.
Comically fated, anyway.
Yeah, I'm sure it'll be. It seems like it's going to be funny, but I don't know. We never know with these stories. But they diverged rapidly and crossed the railway track by separate gates and 500 yards from each other. A turn in the path, at which Untred lingered long, hid Netta at last from his sight. He paused and hesitated. He paused and hesitated. That's hilarious.
Fuck it.
It was growing late, though an hour of summer twilight still remained. He couldn't bear to leave Netta thus alone in the field. She wouldn't allow him to see her home, to be sure, and that being so, he was too much a gentleman to force himself upon her. Well, thank you. Yeah, don't do that.
Good.
He was too much of a man, too, to let her find her way back so late entirely by herself. Unseen himself, he must still watch over her. Against her will, he must still protect her. Oh, God. He would go on to the railway and there sit by the side of the line. Don't sit on the railway! Jesus Christ. And there sit by the side of the line under cover of the hedge till Netta crossed by the other path. Then he'd walk quietly along the 6-foot way to the gate she had passed through and follow her unperceived at a distance along the lane till he saw her back to Holmberry. Whether she wished it or not, he would never leave her.
He was too much of a gentleman to force himself on her, so he decided to stalk her instead.
Stalk her. Also, this photo, this next illustration is so melodramatic. She's like looking off over the fence, just into the distance of the moors. And he's got, now he looks like, is he holding a gun? What? Oh, it's probably a walking stick. Or a very long penis. I don't know.
Hats off to your lady friends.
Hey. He looked about for a seat. One lay most handy. By the side of the line, the government engineers had been at work that day repairing the telegraph system. They had taken down 6 moldering old posts and set up new ones in their place, tall, clean, and shiny. One of the old posts still lay at full length on the ground by the gate, just as the men had left it at the end of their day's work. At the point where the footpath cut the line was a level crossing, and there Untred sat down on the fallen post by the side, half concealed from view by a tall clump of willow herb, waiting patiently for Netta's coming. Sometimes you gotta wait patiently.
Sometimes you have to be patient.
Gotta wait for Netta's coming, yep. Ladies are complicated, as we said.
Patience
they are wonderful.
Patience and persistence.
And women are wonderful. You've got to figure it out. Yes. So he's waiting for Netta's coming. How he listened for that light footfall. His heart was full indeed of gall and bitterness. He loved her so dearly, and she had treated him so ill. Who would ever have believed that Netta, his Netta, would have thrown him over like that for such a ridiculous trifle? Who indeed? And least of all, Netta herself, sitting alone on the stile with her pretty face bowed deep in her hands, and her poor heart wondering how Untred, her Untred, could so easily desert her. In such strange ways is the feminine variety of the human heart constructed. To be sure, she had, of course, dismissed him in the most peremptory fashion. To be sure, she had, of course, dismissed him in the most peremptory.
There we go.
That does not sound like it should be a word.
Peremptory?
Peremptory.
It's a word.
It's one of those words that I'm like, no, I don't like it. I don't like how that feels in my mouth. Peremptory fashion. It's too much up here. It's like peremptory.
It is a very forward word.
It is a very forward word, yeah. She dismissed him in the most peremptory fashion, declaring with all the vows, you have to say it with a British accent, declaring with all the vows propriety. Oh my God. Declaring with all the vows propriety permits to the British maiden that she needed no escort of any sort home, and that she would 10,000 times rather go alone than have him accompany her.
Ugh,
but of course...
They are both being so moody.
They're being such little bitches. But of course, also, she didn't mean it. What woman does?
Just because they said it doesn't mean it's true.
Now you're turning here, author. That ain't true. Sometimes we are wonderful. I'll just say that. Okay. She counted upon a prompt and unconditional surrender. Untred would go to the corner, as in duty bound, and then come back to her with profuse expressions of penitence for the wrong he had never done, to make it all up again in the orthodox fashion. She never intended the real tragedy that was so soon to follow. Oh, fuck! Fuck! No! Oh, shit. She was only playing with her victim, only trying, woman-like, to power over Untred.
This is why you don't play games in relationships.
This is why you don't play games. Also, this is very Oscar Wilde.
Oscar Wilde, yeah.
Oscar Wilde in, like, the perception of girls.
Well, and the perception of romance.
Of romance,
these are two young people who are following the rules and doing the parts that they're supposed to play.
Yep.
Instead of either of them being willing to just be like, this is fucking stupid. Can we just go home?
Like, we're doing good, so fuck it.
Like, hey, I'm hot, you're hot, let's just go bone.
Yeah. Like, hey. So she sat there still and cried on minute after minute in an ecstasy of misery till the sunset began to glow deeper red in the western sky and the bell to ring the curfew in Holmbury Tower. Then it dawned upon her slowly, with a shock of surprise, that after all, incredible, impossible, Untred had positively taken her at her word and wasn't coming back at all tonight to her. At that, the usual womanly terror seized upon her soul. Her heart turned faint. This was too terrible. Great heavens, what had she done? Had she tried Untred too far? And had he really gone? Was he never going to return to her at all? Had he said goodbye in earnest to her forever and ever?
No, you said goodbye forever and ever. You said, those were your words. Literally, goodbye forever and ever.
Terrified at the thought and weak with crying, she rose and straggled down the narrow footpath towards the further crossing. It was getting late now, and Netta, by this time, was really frightened. She wished with all her heart she hadn't sent away Untred, if it were only for the tramps. A man is such a comfort. And then there was that dreadful dog at Milton Court to pass, and Untred was gone, and all the world was desolate. Thinking these things in a tumult.
Yep.
Thinking these things in a tumult of fear to herself, she staggered along the path, feeling tired of heart and positively ill with remorse and terror. The color had faded now out of her pretty red cheeks. Her eyes were dim and swollen with crying. She was almost half glad Untred couldn't see her just then. She was such a fright with her long spell of brooding. Even her bright print dress and her straw hat with the poppies on it couldn't redeem, she felt sure, her pallor and her wretchedness. But Untred was gone, and the world was a wilderness, and he would never come back, and the dog at Milton Court was so vicious.
I love this spiral whirlpool thinking.
It's amazing.
It's just getting worse and worse.
As she walked, or rather groped her way, for she couldn't see for crying, down the path by the hedge, at every step she grew fainter and fainter. Untred was gone, and the world was a blank, and there were tramps and dogs, and it was getting dark, and she loved him so much, and Mama would be so angry. Turning over with thoughts, with a whirling brain, for she was but a girl after all. She reached the little swing gate that led to the railway and pushed it aside with vague, numbed hands and stood gazing vacantly at the long curved line in front of her.
Oh, she's so sad.
She's so sad. Suddenly, a noise rose sharp in the field behind her. It was only a colt, to be sure, disturbed by her approach, dashing wildly across his paddock, as in the way with young horse flesh. Ew, I don't like the way that was described.
You don't like the phrase young horse flesh?
No, I don't. Gross. But to Netta, it came as an indefinite terror, magnified 10,000-fold by her excited feelings. She made a frenzied dash for the other side of the railway. What it was, she knew not. But it was, or might be, anything. Everything. Mad bulls, drunken men, footpads, vagabonds, murderers!
Gypsies, tramps, and thieves.
Here, I felt that people in town.
They called us mad bulls, drunken
men, footpads, and vagabonds, and murderers. Oh, how could Untred ever have taken her at her word and left her like this alone, and in the evening? It was cruel. It was wicked of him. She hated to be disloyal, and yet she felt in her heart it was almost unmanly. Oh, no! No! Why is she laying on the fucking... Y'all...
Dear listener, there is a picture that I believe is a little bit of a spoiler. We haven't gotten to that yet.
I think I'm gonna have to put this in either in the image or something, because that is a dramatic image.
Ridiculous.
That is a dramatic fucking image right there. All right. As she rushed along wildly at the top of her speed, her little foot caught on the first rail. Before she knew what had happened, she had fallen with her body right across the line, faint and terrified already, with 1,000 vague alarms and sudden shock stunned and disabled her. Mad bull or drunken man that might do as they liked now, she was bruised and shaken. She had no thought left to rise or recover herself. Her eyes closed heavily. She lost consciousness at once. Jesus Christ. It was a terrible position. She had fainted on the line with the force of the situation.
This is the shit that happens in every fucking horror movie where the cheerleader or
the
whatever
blonde,
just like trips out of her high heels and falls into the root of a tree or some shit.
Yep. She got a little too upset. As for Untred, from his seat on the telegraph post on the side of the line 500 yards further up, he saw her pause by the gate, then dashed across the road, then stumbled and trip, then fall heavily forward. His heart came up into his mouth at once at the sight. Oh, thank heaven he had waited. Thank heaven he was near. She had fallen across the line, and a train might come along before she could rise up again. She seemed hurt, too. In a frenzy of suspense, he darted forward to save her.
All right, hero.
Okay, here we go. It took but a second for him to realize that she had fallen and was seriously hurt. But in the course of that second, even as he realized it all, another and more pressing terror seized him. Hark! What is that? He listened and thrilled. Oh no, too terrible. Yes, it must be the railway, the railway!
Of course a train's coming. Life is just that dramatic.
He knew it. He felt it. I think this is the plot for Sleepless in not Sleepless in Seattle, While You Were Sleeping.
Oh.
When,
this is a prequel to While You Were Sleeping.
Peter Gallagher falls on the tracks and she saves him, and then they, yeah.
Yep. She's gonna come up with amnesia or something.
This was her grandparents. It's just like, it all falls.
Their whole family is just they owe their whole lineage to trains.
To trains and unfortunate accidents that are almost tragedy. Yep. The railway, he knew it. He felt it. Along the upline on which Netta was lying, he heard behind him, oh, unmistakable, unthinkable, the fierce whir of the express dashing madly down upon him. It was even the express train in While You Were Sleeping. She's like Sandra Bullock's like, it's the express, it's the express. Great heavens, what could he do? The train was coming. The train was almost this moment upon them. Before he could have time to rush wildly forward and snatch Netta from where she lay, full in its path, a helpless weight. Oh, my God. Come on. You can move her, dude. Get your shit together. He's like,
not that
she
big.
was so heavy. It would have swept past him relentlessly and borne down upon her like lightning.
Oh, so the trouble is that she's too far away.
Oh, got it. Okay. The express was coming to crush Netta to pieces. In these awful moments, men don't think. They don't reason. They don't even realize what their action means. They simply
That's generally
act.
true.
Yeah.
That's generally rule. No thinking, no reasoning, no thinking of consequences.
I mean, it goes back to the women are from Mars. Women are wonderful, and men are, what was it?
Simple.
Simple. I mean, basically, women overthink everything, and men don't usually think about anything. So this makes sense. Untred felt in a second, without even consciously feeling it, so to speak, that any attempt to reach Netta now before that devouring engine had burst upon her at full speed would be absolutely hopeless. His one chance lay in stopping the train somehow. How or where or with what, he cared not. His own body would do if nothing else came. Only stop it! Stop it! Jesus, don't jump in front of the train. It'll hit both of you.
Yeah, dude, that's not gonna work.
That's not gonna work, dude. He didn't think of it at all that moment as a set of carriages containing a precious freight of human lives. He thought of it only as a horrible, cruel, devouring creature rushing headway on a full speed to Netta's destruction. It was a senseless, wild beast to be combated at all hazards. It was a hideous, ruthless, relentless thing to be checked in its mad career in no matter what fashion. All he knew, indeed, was that Netta, his Netta, lay helpless on the track, and that the engine, like some madman, poofing and snorting with wild glee and savage exultation, was hastening forward with fierce strides to crush and mangle her.
So just pull out your bazooka and blow the train off the track.
Get your walking stick out and just hit it. At any risk, he must stop it, with anything, anyhow. As he gazed around him, horror-struck, with blank, inquiring stare, and with this one fixed idea possessing his whole soul, Untred's eye happened to fall upon the dismantled telegraph post, on which by 1 minute before he had been sitting. The sight inspired him. Ha-ha! A glorious chance! He could lift it on the line. He could lay it across the rails. He could turn it round into place. He could upset the train. He could place it in the way of that murderous engine.
So this is actually the train dilemma. It's, do you save Netta or do you and risk the lives of all of the passengers on the train?
Yeah. No sooner thought than done. With the wild energy of despair, the young man lifted the small end of the ponderous post bodily up in his arms and twisting it on the big base as on an earth-fast pivot, managed by main force and with a violent effort to lay it at last in front of the advancing locomotive. How he did it, he never rightly knew himself, for the weight of the great bulk was simply enormous. But horror and love and the awful idea that Netta's life was at stake seemed to supply him at once with unwonted energy. He lifted it up in his arms as he would have lifted a child, and straining in every limb, stretching it at last full across both rails, a formidable obstacle before the approaching engine. Hurrah! Hurrah! He had succeeded now. It would throw the train offline and Netta would be saved for him. To think and do all of this under the spur of the circumstances took Untred something less than 20 seconds. In a great crisis, men live rapidly.
Living on adrenaline, dude. Living on adrenaline.
It was quick as thought. And at the end of it all, he saw the big log laid right across the line with infinite satisfaction. Such a splendid obstacle that, so round and heavy, it must throw the train clean off the metals. It must produce a fine first-class catastrophe. As he thought it, half aloud, a sharp curve brought the train round the corner close to where he stood. Great drops of sweat now oozing clammily from every pore with his exertion. He looked at it languidly, and some vague, dim sense of duty accomplished, and a great work well done for Netta and humanity. There would be a real live accident in a moment now, a splendid accident, a first-rate catastrophe. Great heavens, an accident! And then, with sudden bursts of inspiration, the other side of the transaction flashed in one electric spark upon Untred's brain. Why, this was murder! There were people in that train, innocent human beings, men and women like himself, who would next minute be wrecked and mangled corpses or writhing forms on the tracks before him. He was guilty of a crime, an awful crime. He was trying to produce a terrible, ghastly, bloody railway accident. Now he's just holding a big stick. Until that second, the idea had never even so much as occurred to him. In the first wild flush of horror at Netta's situation, he had thought of nothing except how best to save her. He had regarded the engine only as a hateful, cruel, destructive living being. He had forgotten the passengers, the stoker, the officials. He had been conscious only of Netta and of that awful thing, breathing flame and steam that was rushing on to destroy her. For another indivisible second of time, Untred Carnegie's soul was the theater of a terrible and appalling struggle. What on earth was he to do? Which of these two was he to sacrifice? Should it be murder or treachery? I want to think... no, I'm not going to say what I think is about to happen. Must he wreck the train or let it mangle Netta? The sweat stood upon his brow in great clammy drops at the dread dilemma. It was an awful question for any man to solve. He shrank aghast before that deadly decision. They were innocent, to be sure, the people in that train. They were unknown men, women, and children. They had the same right to their lives as Netta herself. It was a crime, sheer crime, thus to seek to destroy them. But, still, what would you have? Netta lay there, all helpless on the line, his dear own Netta, and she had parted from him in anger but half an hour since. Could he leave her to be destroyed by that hideous, snorting, puffing thing? Has not any man the right to try and save the lives he loves best, no matter at what risk or peril to others? He asked himself this question too, vaguely, indistinctively, with the rapid haste of the life and death struggle, asked himself with horror, for he had no strength left now to do one thing or another, to remove the obstacle from the place where he had laid it, or to warn the driver. 1 second alone remained when all would be over. On it came, roaring, flaring, glaring with the great bull's eyes now peering red round the corner, a terrible, fiery dragon, resistless, unconscious, bearing down in mad glee upon the pole or Netta. Which of the two should it be? The pole or Netta? The end. Oh, fuck! It really is the train dilemma.
Yep. Except that we know what he chooses.
We know what he chooses because she's crying at the beginning.
Because at the beginning, she is in her room alone. Thinking back on the evening. So we know what he chooses.
He chooses Netta.
All those people on the train are dead.
I'm hoping it's like I'm hoping it's like a freight train and there's no people. It's like it's a steam engine, and he kind of does this right before the train hits, and the conductor and the stoker like jump out.
Or at the very least, they hit the brakes so that the collision isn't quite so catastrophic.
Yeah.
But regardless, nope. You told us right at the beginning there. We know that Netta survives.
Well, I kept saying, I'm like, I know she survived. I was waiting for her to like tap him on the shoulder while he's sitting here like staring and going, what do I do? What do I do? And she's like gotten up and been like,
honey,
why
are you trying to derail a train?
Or like, you're here, I love you. And then he forgets to move the log or something. Or or they both move the log together. Or like, who knows? But so we don't know what happened. Well, we do know what happened. Do you think Untred and Netta will survive this tragedy? I guess it depends on if he's in jail or not, because if people did die, he is definitely has been arrested for committing a crime.
No, only if he gets caught.
That's true. Of course, she is sitting alone at the beginning of the story.
Yeah, which could just mean that he
went home. Yeah.
He picked her up, and because she's unconscious, right? So he may have wrecked the train, picked her up, walked away from the flaming wreckage of the train with her in his arms, carried her unconscious body to her room, dropped her off so that she never knows it was him, went home, and now, there's no problem.
She doesn't even know it ever happened.
She doesn't even know what ever happened. She just knows that at one point she blacked out and then she woke up at home.
I'm going to guess that might come out eventually in their relationship. That just seems like a secret he isn't going to want to keep forever, given their both of their ideas and what's the word? Their inclination towards the dramatic.
Oh, yeah.
I don't think he's going to keep that one in too long. But
Probably not. Although if he makes it till 30, by then cooler heads prevail, right?
that's true. Once you make it to Dirty 30, y'all, it's all bullshit from there. It's all a lot of fuck it energy.
From then on, not giving a shit and lying to people becomes way easier.
I don't know about lying to people. I will definitely say not giving a shit and fuck it is much easier.
Yeah. Hey, listener, what did you think of that one? Did you enjoy it? What would you do? If if the tempestuous love of your life was laying there on a railroad track, would you save them or would you murder a train full of people? That's what I want to know.
I mean, I know it all happened in a split second because when you're writing, you can write all the thoughts that spin through your brain. But I was like, as it continued, I was like, dude, you had plenty of time to go get her.
Yeah.
Run, you British gentleman, run.
You're just being dramatic for the sake of drama, and it's really annoying. I'm also curious if any of our listeners have stories of foolishness and young love that they would like to share. Like, like sitting alone or with a friend and listening to On My Own.
Yeah.
So go ahead and write in and let us know your thoughts on those things. Write into 5050artsproduction@gmail.com or any of our social media, just looking for Campfire Classics. And when you write in, go ahead and use this week's secret passcode, which is Young Horseflesh.
Ew, I knew it. I knew you were going to use it because I made a big deal out of it. Young Horseflesh.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that one was good. And
that was a fun one.
And we got done in time for you to wrap up and go get lunch. So
yeah, I got to go eat and then go to tech.
To tech you go. And I got to pack because I'm going to come see you tomorrow.
Wee.
Yay, I get to see Ken for his opening. Yay.
All right. Well, darling, I will see you tomorrow. Before we sign off, any last notes, thoughts, parting shots?
No. That was fun.
Thank you for joining us, listeners. And until next time, this has been Campfire Classics, where we try to read those books that look really good on your shelf.
Conjunction, junction, what's your function? Do you derail the trail or train or do you save Netta? Conjunction, junction.
Schoolhouse Rock. Kong Kong.